Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror.
So today we're doing our review on Candyman 1992.
We will not be touching on either of the two sequels or the requel from 2020, but if that is something you would like for us to do, please let us know down in the comments. We would be happy to do that. But for now, we're going to give you our positives, our negatives, and then we're going to spoil Candyman 1992.
So let's get to the positives. So speaking of the positives, the acting, Tony Todd, his acting is on point. He's so terrifying and his voice is just memorizing. But yet chilling at the same point when he says, "Helen, be my victim." And then like the hurt in his voice when he's like, "Come back to me." Like you can just like the way he can portray his voice, and he's just amazing.
Yeah.
Also, Virginia Madsen, our main character that we follow, we go through these ups and downs with her, and it's an emotional ride, and you really care about her well-being. Plus we get a little cameo from Ted Raimi, so that was pretty cool.
We all love Ted Raimi around
do.
here. The score in this movie's ridiculous.
It's
Top
amazing.
notch. Philip Glass really nailed the score of this film. One of my personal favorite scores. The opening score is something I actually had on a CD back in the day. And kids, you used to be able to put a CD into your computer and you could, what they would call burn CDs. You would put music right onto those CDs. I had that on a CD at one point. That's how much I loved this opening score.
Yeah, it's great. The atmosphere is really disturbing. You have all this imagery. It really just brought everything together, like the graffiti, and then you have like the dark housing. There's not really a lot of light in these hallways, stuff like that. It just really brings everything together and makes this like disturbing imagery, and it's amazing.
It really is. One of the most disturbing images, and I've talked about this numerous times, one of the scariest moments to me in this whole movie. I mean, the gore overall is top notch.
Oh, it's
but
amazing.
we have a scene where there's a young boy laying in a puddle of his own blood, and he had his penis cut off. And man, that scene as a kid really, really affected me.
Yeah.
One of the most top 10 disturbing images that affected me in all of horror history. So that's a scene that, like I said, it rocked me as a kid. Even watching it now is so disturbing and so scary to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I never even had a penis, and that still like rocked me. The horror, like it's a horror movie first, but it really pulls these world issues about social class and race. But again, like I said, it's a horror movie first. It brings all these things together, and it's amazing.
It's Clive Barker. The writing is just top notch, phenomenal. And yeah, it's back in 92, they were doing what people hate today, and we won't get on that subject.
No,
but
we will not.
it has a lot of different genres in one movie. I mean, it's a slasher, it's a psychological horror, it's a tragic love story. There's a lot of police procedural type stuff in here. So they touch on a bunch of different genres and subgenres throughout the movie. And I think those are some of the most well-written and most liked horror movies, in my opinion, are the ones that are able to do that very, very well.
Well, it's like somebody can find something they love in this movie because of all the different genres and subgenres.
Exactly.
Also, the practical effects are so good. Tony Todd had real bees in his mouth at the end with Helen. Right there, that is amazing to me. Like, he went above and beyond, had real bees in his mouth, and she had real bees on her face. Like, that's awesome.
That's why they're the goats.
They are the goat.
I mean, we all talk about Tony Todd in this movie, rightfully so, and how amazing he is in this movie. Give Virginia Madsen her flowers, too.
Oh, for sure.
She is so good in this movie, and the way that she was put under by a hypnotist, during a lot of these scenes to give her that, 1,000-yard stare.
The glazed over eyes. Yeah. She nailed it.
She really went above and beyond as well. Like, she went past her comfort zone a lot of the times with these hypnotist scenes, and it shows in the end product. I would never want anybody to be uncomfortable, obviously.
Right.
But it's something she was willing to do, and she showed that she is willing to go above and beyond to make the best film she can possibly make. So the combination of this whole team working together, it really, really shows in the final product. So
absolutely.
We've talked about the positives
We have.
of Candyman. Let's get into some of our negatives of the Bee Guy. So obviously no film is perfect. So there are some negatives. And one of them, she talks about in the beginning of the movie how she could hear someone being killed through the walls.
Yeah.
And then later on, her baby's right next door after the baby's been kidnapped.
She can't hear her baby.
But she couldn't hear the baby crying through the walls. She couldn't hear any of that. So that's a scene that really bothered us on a rewatch. Like, you're talking about how you could hear the killing through the walls and you didn't want to go and stop it. But in this, you can't hear your baby crying right next door when you're looking for your missing infant. So that's one scene that really stuck with us, is like,
Okay, this is more of just an annoyance to me, and it's when Trevor's mistress starts crying when Helen finds her in her apartment painting it pink, and she's crying, and like, at least have some fucking guts. Like, if you're going to sleep with a married man, which is his fault just as much as it's hers.
oh, yeah.
If you're gonna sleep with a married man, you can't cry. You gotta have some guts, girl. You gotta have some.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's more his fault than hers. This girl doesn't owe Helen anything. And I know that's a really terrible way to think.
Absolutely not. But don't be in my apartment painting it pink, and then cry.
Yeah, don't play the victim.
No, because you are not the victim.
No, like I said, she doesn't owe Helen anything. It's her husband's fault.
It absolutely.
He's a monster. I mean, I don't care what age it is. This could be a whole nother tangent for me. If you are a teacher or a professor and you're sleeping with a student, I don't care if you're college level and you're all adults, you're taking advantage of somebody and you're using your position of power onto them. You're a sick person anyway. That's just my opinion. But I don't care, like I said, elementary, middle school, high school, college. If you're doing that, you're sick. There's something mentally wrong with you. You're taking advantage of people that you're supposed to be an influence for. So totally on him in this situation. While we do love the gore that we get in this movie, a lot of the kills are off screen. And I get, they wanted it to be more psychological than your stereotypical slasher type of film. But I really wish we could have seen some more of the kills. I mean, again, the kills that we get
are amazing and they're top notch, and you get the gore. But
we'll talk about them in a minute.
We will.
But I wish we could have gotten more kills on screen and just the graphic bloodiness of them.
We could have gotten more Tony Todd as well. I think we could have, but I feel like that in every movie. Like, give us more Tony Todd. So I don't know. He's just when he's on screen, it's just creepy and eerie and memorizing, and sometimes less is more. But I feel like we could have used a little more of the villain.
See, this is where this is hard for me, because I feel like if we could have gotten more Tony, it could have been like Jaws with Bruce. Less is more.
Yeah.
If we could have gotten, I mean, look at Candyman 2, which is decent, but then look at I feel like if you would have had him on screen more, it could have definitely hampered it. This Candyman and Hellraiser, to me, have a lot of intersecting lines. You don't see a lot of Pinhead and the Gash, the rest of his crew in Hellraiser, and the time that you get them is so impactful because of the little amount of time. And same thing here with Candyman. You don't get to see Tony Todd that much, so when you do, it's very impactful. But I'm also on the train. I'm torn on this because give me more Tony.
Yeah.
If I could get more Tony, I'll take more Tony.
Yeah, for sure.
But I could see a positive and a negative in this. So while we're talking about positives and negatives, guys, if you haven't seen Candyman 92, go watch the damn movie.
Absolutely.
It's so good. But we are now going to spoil this film. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it, because you're doing yourself a disservice because you haven't. And then come back and see what you think about our spoilers of the film.
All right, like Ken said, now we're going to spoil things. So we have to talk about Candyman's urban legend. You say his name in the mirror 3 times.
If you look in the mirror and you say his name 5 times, he'll appear behind you, breathing down your neck.
I feel like everybody has their little urban legend in different parts in the world, and Candyman is one in Chicago.
And here, for us in Michigan, it was Little Bo Peep.
Little Bo Peep, yeah.
She was the big one when we were kids. Little Bo Peep will come and get you. So.
Yeah, they had 2 lakes behind the school, and it was shaped like an H, and so.
She was going to come and get you. The terrible backstory of what happened to Candyman. You get more on this in the second film especially. So if you haven't seen the second film, it really is worth a watch. Farewell to Flesh. I think that it's great. I really like Farewell to Flesh. It's nowhere on the level of Candyman, but you get a lot of the backstory and how tragic the backstory truly is. And it's so hard to root against Candyman when you find out about everything that happened to him. He was just a painter that was in love.
Yeah.
And his punishment was, getting slathered in honey so bees would sting him, and he had to get his right hand cut off, and all because he fell in love with a white woman.
Yeah.
That
That's devastating.
looked eerily similar to Virginia Madsen.
Crazy, right?
It was always you, Helen. It was always you.
So we already kind of talked about this, but the Be My Victim, when he hypnotizes Helen and is able to make her pretty much just pass out so he can take her to wherever she needs to go.
Well, let's just listen to him say her name a little bit.
Helen. Helen.
Yeah, you could hypnotize me anytime, buddy.
I'm already hypnotized. But I have my name.
So this movie is so impactful to Ashley and I. We went to Chicago to do some filming for a movie, and we went to Cabrini Green.
We did.
And unfortunately, it doesn't look anything like it did then. But, you know, you have the scene where Helen wakes up at Cabrini Green, the baby is gone, and the dog's head's cut off.
And she has no idea.
She's covered in blood. They think that she killed the baby or she kidnapped the baby. Very, very emotional moment in the movie. Like, even her, you know, and then the cops come in and she's got the knife. It's like, oh, you done fucked up now.
Absolutely. And then after all that happened, she gets released. Her friend,
Bernadette.
she gets killed in her apartment when she comes over to see her, and then Helen gets blamed for that as well. And there's like
This is a kill I would like to see more on screen.
Yes, I know, for real, because the aftermath of it looks really great. But this is where it kind of like draws the line, like, is this in Helen's head? Is this
she the one
real?
doing it?
Yes.
Yeah. Or is Candyman a real thing?
Right.
Is it like a psychological thing where she thinks she's seeing Candyman, but it's really her doing the business? Another part is Helen with Candyman in the psychic ward, and him stabbing the psychiatrist when she brings him in there. That's another part where you're like, God, man, this guy is just so... Or her. Again, at this point, you're not really sure.
Right.
But it's just evil.
It is.
Evil incarnate at this point.
Yeah, and then Candyman, he finally kind of like shows himself to her under the coat, and then he has like this freaked me out when I was a kid. This scared me so bad, but when he has his decaying body and the bees all over him, this scared me. Scared me to death.
It's on your shirt right now.
It is.
Another thing that I love is the scene of, you talked about it earlier, and I wanted to show this, which we will in a second. Helen, they're having the big bonfire out at Cabrini Green, and the baby's in there.
Yes.
And Helen gets into the wood to try to save the baby, and she does. She ends up crawling out with baby Anthony, who has a big part in the requel, by the way. So if you guys want, we'll talk about that too. She carries him out and gives him back to his mother. She saves Anthony. And when she does, when she's leaving, you have Tony Todd saying this. The hurt in his voice.
It's so amazing.
And he loves Helen. You know, it's always been you, Helen. You know, and the hurt in his voice was doing the come back to me. Like, it hurts your chest because he's just so amazing. And you're supposed to hate this guy.
Right, because he's the killer, but at the same time, it's like he just loves her so much.
Right.
It's hard to hate him.
It is hard to hate him. And because what happened, especially like I said, after you watch Farewell to Flesh and then you go back and watch this movie, you really feel even more for him. Like, he's found his love again. And it's just really, really hard to stomach that she's, you know, leaving him, you know. She gets pretty burned up in the fire, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty burned up to the point of she don't make it.
Right.
We lose Helen.
And then Trevor, he figures it out. Once she's gone, he figures it out. Like, I screwed up. Like, I really did, like, love her. He's, like, going back and thinking about all this stuff she did and her smile. And then he says her name in the mirror 3 times. And she appears with her hook and kills him.
I love this scene.
I'm like,
when I heard that,
him.
I never knew there was a Candyman sequel when I was a kid because the store had shut down. I didn't know much about new releases. We didn't have the internet. When I found out there was a Candyman 2, I was really hoping it was Helen.
Yeah.
That was the Candyman at this point because of the way this movie ends. But one last scene I want to talk about because I feel like it's a really impactful scene. When we go to Helen's funeral, there's really no one there. Very, very little people. And then the Cabrini Green people have this like procession.
March, yes.
And they march up and they take the hook and they throw it into the grave. I got goosebumps right now. It's an amazingly powerful scene of these people saying thank you. You got rid of our monster for us. We hated you. We thought you the worst of you. We thought that you killed Anthony, the baby.
Yeah.
And really, you were the savior. You were our savior. And you had this whole procession line of people that came up to show their respects to this woman. And it's fiction, guys, I get it. But it's still so powerful in that moment. Like I said, I got goosebumps from it then. I get goosebumps from it now. The power of these people together. Because like I said, if this movie came out today, there's a certain group of people that would hate this movie. Yeah. And it's because of lines like this.
2 people get brutally murdered and the cops do nothing. Whereas a white woman goes in there and gets attacked and they lock the place down. Yeah, I know. But
I mean, you know, this is how it is. This is how this movie is. And this movie is so powerful in so many different ways. So what would your overall ranking of Candyman be?
So out of 5, I'm going to give it a 4.5. We've already talked about how it's this tragic love story, a psychological thriller, really, because you don't really know until the end. Like, is it in her head? Is it not in her head? The gore that we get is top notch. I enjoy this movie. I remember watching it as a kid and it terrified me. I was afraid to even go in my bathroom with the lights off at night. Like it that's what it does to you. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5.
That's a very high ranking that I agree with. I'm going to give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. I wish we could have gotten some more on-screen kills. Even if it was just a little bit more Tony, that would have been beneficial. And like I said, there's little things in the movie that kind of irritate me a little bit the older I get that I watch it. But overall, this is such a great experience. Like, such a great, great viewing experience in a time of horror 92 to 95 that was not very strong. This is one of the strongest films to come out in the 90s. And it may be blasphemous. I like this more than Scream. I know. Both very, very good movies. And I would say 2 of the 3 best movies of the 90s. I'd put them right up there with Child's Play 3 for my favorite 3 movies of the 90s. But yeah, Candyman. And it ages so well. In today's environment, this movie aged extremely well. And it's just a movie I could watch over and over and over again. So let us know down in the comments, guys. What are your opinions on Candyman? Would you like to see us cover any of the other Candyman films? Because I promise you, we'd be happy to do it if that's what you guys would like. We could do a deep dive and do a ranking as well. So let us know in the comments what you think about Candyman. If you'd like us to continue any more of the Candyman movies. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It helps to build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.